Hello and welcome to Southern Communities Church's video message of the week. Have you ever wondered why it is that bad things sometimes happen to good people? You would think that people who live good lives would be immune from problems, but that's not so. Life happens and sometimes awful things occur in the lives of good people. Now, when that happens, we can ask ourselves, why did that occur? Was it because of something they did? Well, let me share with you today the true story of a family's horrendous experiences and how they dealt with them. Horatio Gates Spafford was born in New York on the 20th of October 1828, but it was in Chicago that he became well known for his clear Christian testimony. He and his wife Anna were active in their church, and their home was always open to visitors. They counted the world-famous evangelist Dwight L. Moody among their friends. They were blessed with 5 children and considerable wealth. Horatio was a lawyer and owned a great deal of property in his home city. And not unlike Job in the Old Testament of the Bible, tragedy came in great measure to this happy home. In 1871, his 4-year-old son Horatio died of scarlet fever. While struggling with this personal tragedy, a massive fire swept through downtown Chicago, devastating the city, including many properties owned by Horatio. That day, almost 300 people lost their lives and around 100,000 were made homeless. The Great Chicago Fire reduced the family's property investments and financial security to ashes. What remained was seriously devalued in the financial downturn that followed. And despite their own substantial financial loss, the Spaffords sought to demonstrate the love of Christ by assisting those who were grief-stricken and in great need. Horatio's finances took another hit during the panic of the 1873 financial crisis, and he lost even more of his money. So in 1873, Spafford decided his family should take a holiday in England, knowing that his friend, the evangelist D.L. Moody, would be preaching there in the autumn. Plans were made for the family, including Horatio, his wife Anna, and their 4 daughters, to journey to Europe. In November 1873, via the French iron steamship Ville de Havre. Horatio accompanied them to New York, but at the last minute had to change his plans because of a business problem that he had to deal with. He sent his family on ahead, promising to join them as soon as possible. His wife Anna and their daughters, Annie, 11, Margaret Lee, 9, Elizabeth, 5, and baby Tanetta, 2, set sail on November the 15th. His family never reached their destination, and he never saw his 4 daughters again. Ironically, the Ville de Havre's captain, acting as confident as the future captain on another unsinkable ship 39 years later, assured Anna Spafford and other passengers that his ship was very safe and the voyage would be an easy one. A week into the voyage, on the 22nd of November 1873, the liner collided with the British clipper Loch Earn. Even as the ship was struck, sounding like an explosion according to one passenger, the captain told everyone, it's nothing, don't worry. And as the ship began to take on water, the crew assured passengers that the ship was too safe to sink. But they were wrong. The Ville de Havre sank in just 12 minutes, killing an estimated 226 people, including all 4 of Spafford's daughters. Anna survived the shipwreck by clinging to a floating plank. And as anyone can imagine, the accounts of the Ville de Havre sinking are terrifying. Heartbreakingly, in the last moments of the 11-year-old daughter, Annie, she is recorded as proclaiming, "Don't be afraid, the sea is his and he made it." And as Anna, Horatio's wife, was thrown into the sea, she felt her baby Tanetta pulled out of her arms by the rough waves. All 4 daughters died. When Anna was finally rescued, she was unconscious, floating on a piece of debris. The rescue ship, Tremountain, took the survivors to Cardiff. During this voyage, Anna said very few words. And after Anna was rescued, Pastor Nathaniel Wise, one of the ministers travelling with the surviving group, remembered hearing Anna say, "God gave me 4 daughters. Now they have been taken from me. Someday I will understand why." In her grief and despair, other survivors feared that Anna might take her own life. But later she spoke of hearing a voice saying, "You were saved for a purpose," and remembered that a friend had once said, "It's easy to be grateful and good when you have had so much, but take care that you are not a fair weather friend to God." Once Anna arrived in Cardiff, she sent a telegram to her husband in Chicago that must have devastated him. The words on that telegram were, "Saved, but saved alone. What should I do?" Horatio immediately set off for Wales to bring his wife home, who was now staying with friends. And at one point during the voyage, the ship's captain summoned Horatio to his cabin and explained that he had determined the exact spot where the Ville de Havre had gone down. He let Horatio know that they were at that moment passing that very spot. Horatio then returned to his own cabin and, leaning for strength on his tremendous faith in God, wrote the words which became the hymn, "It is well with my soul," to which Arthur Bliss later added his familiar melody. He later wrote to Anna's half-sister, "On Thursday last, we passed over the spot where she went down in mid-ocean. The waters were 3 miles deep. But I do not think of our dear ones there. They are safe, dear lambs." That tragedy for both Anna and Horatio changed their lives. But Horatio's faith in God never faltered. Their misfortunes obviously had a profound effect on their belief in what they were to do with their lives, and also impacted their theology. Understandably, it also had an impact on those who heard the hymn and the story behind it. Horatio and Anna returned to Chicago. In 1876 they had a son who they named Horatio, and in 1878 a daughter, Bertha. Tragically, Horatio also died from scarlet fever, again only aged 4. And in 1880 they had another daughter whom they named Grace. In August 1881, the Spaffords left America with a number of other like-minded Christians and settled in the old part of Jerusalem. There they served the needy, helped the poor, and cared for the sick, and took in homeless children. Their desire was to show those living about them the love of Jesus. And serving the needy, poor, sick, and homeless, their work became known as the American Colony, and the subject of Selma Langevov's Nobel Prize-winning novel, Jerusalem. The original manuscript of the Spaffords hymn has only 4 verses, but later another verse was added, and the music was written by Mr. Bliss, was named after the ship on which Horatio and Anna's daughters had died, Ville de Havre. Now, what was it that gave Horatio and Anna such a strong faith and trust in God? How would you have reacted to those circumstances? Well, there's a part of the Bible that explains why it is that Horatio kept on believing, because it shares how he was given an example by what Jesus had to endure for each one of us. And that passage is found in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. It's a crucial passage in the New Testament book of Hebrews. It comes after a long chapter in which the writer reminds his readers of all the great saints in the Old Testament era who were true heroes of faith. People who willingly suffered in this world for the promises that God made about the glories to come. The writer wanted his readers to remember those heroic saints, but most of all, he wanted them to keep their eyes on the greatest example of all. And so he wrote to them these words: "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. The writer of Hebrews is using the analogy of an athletic game. He was writing to Christians who were suffering persecution for their faith, and he tells them that in reality they were running in a spiritual race. In the original language of this letter, the word that he uses for race is one that you'll recognise. It's the Greek word agon, the word from which we get the English word agony. And if you've ever tried out for track and field, you'll know that that's a good name for a race, an agony. You're straining everything that's in you, but you're doing it all for a singular purpose. That is for the prize at the end, whether it's a medal or just an accolade. The writer wanted to encourage his readers to keep on running in the Christian race, no matter how hard it felt. And one of the ways that he sought to encourage them was by reminding them of all those great saints who had run the race before them. That great cloud of witnesses that he describes in such great detail in chapter 11. They could all testify to the glory that awaits the faithful runner at the end. And they were all, as it were, sat in the heavenly stands all around those suffering Christians and cheering them on. Don't quit. Keep running. Keep striving. Keep agonising. There's a glorious victory at the end. Horatio Spafford died of malaria on the 16th of October 1888. Anna Spafford continued to work in the surrounding areas of Jerusalem until her own death in 1923. Both Horatio and Anna were laid to rest in Jerusalem, and it can truly be said in the words that Spafford penned that it is well with their souls. And the question I want you to leave you with as we listen to the hymn is this one. Is it well with your soul? I trust it is. But if you don't feel that you can say, it is well with my soul, then you need to take some time aside from everyone else to pray and ask God to reveal his love to you today, and that you will know his peace. May the peace of God be with you all. God bless, and we'll see you again soon.